So, to recap our last session, you'd spoken to the people in the small town of Holstopp about a terrible set of circumstances that had fallen upon their town. At first it was believed to be an ancient curse, and almost every civilian you spoke to believed this, blaming a figure, or an entity, known only as the Black Siren. But as you explored and investigated and stuck your noses where noses ought not to be stuck, you came to discover a cover-up concerning a local landowner and a group of miners and their families who have been carving out the caves under the southern parts of the town into the woods and the mountains beyond. So, as night began to fall, you made camp on the outer edges of the woods, and we'll pick up as you wake up the next morning. Anything you want to do before you leave? Alright, Polonius is peeing behind a tree, good to know. Anyone else? No, you're the only one peeing behind a tree. Alright, so you pack down your camp and start making your way into the forest. Which way do you want to head? South? Alright, are you following the path or are you making your own way? Polonius goes marching ahead, cutting down branches and bushes with his broadsword. Mari and Jewel? Okay, so you're going back to the path. Right, Mari grabs you by the ear and leads you back to the path. It's still fairly early morning, so there's a very thin light coming through the trees. It's not quite overhead yet, so streaks of light are coming through at an angle. You can see quite clearly, though. It doesn't, you're not that deep into the forest just yet, so it won't get denser or darker for maybe half a mile yet. You're not that obstructed. Make a perception check for me. The path's well travelled. This was the main road up to the mountains before the shorter path was built, so the ground's packed hard and rutted from the wagons on either side. You do, however, see one or two. They're quite spread out, but where the bushes and plants have overgrown the edges of the path, every now and then there's a couple of snapped twigs and some trampled leaves. It doesn't look freshly recent, but within the past day or so. We continue down the road. Alright. Yeah? Jewel. Alright. Jewel goes scavenging off into the undergrowth and finds dirt. There's dirt, and there's grass, and there's some more dirt. No, no, yeah, sure. Yeah, that'll be athletics. It takes a moment to go find a good tree, but you do find one where the first branch is within your reach. It's manageable with a little difficulty, but you get yourself up about 10, 12 feet off the ground. Yeah, more perception. You can see the leaves really well from up here. Alright, you staying up there? No, I won't make you roll to fall flat on your face. Jewel falls flat on his face and takes 3 points of fall damage. I said I wouldn't make you roll, you still have to take damage. Yeah, it's 1d6 for every 10 feet of falling, so 3 points isn't that bad. Curlo, that's 1d6? Let me check. 1d8. Okay, so Mari cures you for 5 points of damage. It's like it never even happened. So, making your way along the path, staying on the other side of the bushes. Yep, okay. So you're walking for about 10-15 minutes with no real change in your surroundings until a rotted old wooden fence starts to run along the path. So it's separating down, sort of down the middle between you and the path, yeah. Do you want to stay on this side? Alright. So half an hour passes, and you're getting deeper now, and even though you know the sun is getting higher, the forest is getting thicker, so you're in like a constant shade. The tree trunks are getting closer together, and you find yourselves having to walk in single file, picking your way through as best you can. Who's leading the way here? Should have guessed. So after Polonius? So Mari's at the back, okay? You keep walking? Hey Polo, make me a nature roll, please. Okay, so For the most part, you do a pretty good job of keeping along with the path, keeping track of the presence of the fence on your right and using the gaps in the trees where the road runs as an indicator of your direction. But as you hit a particularly tricky part of the forest, you take your eyes off the fence to get across a section of ground where the dirt's just been washed and fallen away, and it's just gnarled roots and branches forming a bridge over about a 6-foot ditch. It's stable enough to hold the weight of all three of you, but as you reach the other side, you realise that it's much, much darker now, and you have in fact lost track of the path. There's a few scurrying about, sure. Okay, so you catch the attention of a nearby squirrel. The squirrel hops towards the raisins you scattered on the ground and sniffs. And do you have speak with animals? Yes. I know you've got speak with dead, but oh, it's a class ability. Sorry. No. Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, thanks. Go ahead. So the squirrel looks up at you and says, "Yes." No, my voice doesn't go high enough for a squirrel voice. I'm not doing it. What? Do you want to bury a white squirrel? Right, you're going to get a bury a white squirrel. So the squirrel looks up at you and says, "Yes." "Yes, ma'am." "Over that way where the hill fell down." No, I'm not going to do the voice anymore. The men dug in and didn't come out. "Thank you, ma'am." And the squirrel takes the raisins out of your hand and scurries off. You immediately lose sight of it as it hops around a tree. Okay, going back to the path. For as dense as the trees are, it turns out you weren't far off the mark. It only takes a few minutes to find your way back to the road, and you're met with a very new section of fence, very different to the dilapidated one you saw earlier on, and alright, you jump over. Okay. It looks pretty empty. The way you came is pretty straight for a while before curving off, but up ahead it curves around the slope that forms the bottom of the mountain, and you notice on the side closer to you there appears to be the aftermath of a landslide, where massive chunks of ground and rock and shale and gravel just scattered across the base of the mountain. Mari, Jewel, following him? Alright. Max, can I see your character sheet real quick? Passive. Yeah, okay. There you go. So, Jewel, as you hop over the fence, you can't see this landslide that Polonius is talking about. What you do see is an opening on the side of the mountain that looks much, much newer than the opening to the mine shaft you showed back in the town. And there's tracks coming down, zigzagging down the section of the mountain, clearly rutted from heavy use. And as you say that, you hear a voice from around the bend in the road shouting, "Oh, you! Stop there!" And you see 4 people, human from what you can tell, but armoured and weapons drawn. And I need the 3 of you to roll initiative.